You were trained to be soft, weren't you? To be open, to be vulnerable. They sold you a beautifully packaged lie, wrapped in soft edges and sweet slogans. Be her protector, they said, her provider, her peace. They told you that women want a good man, a man who listens, who feels, who serves. But here you are, confused, maybe abandoned, definitely ignored, watching the same woman who once seemed to cling to your very presence now get excited over the guy who doesn't even call her back. And deep down, you feel it, that quiet, nagging itch of betrayal, that little voice in the back of your head whispering, "None of what they taught me is working." Because it doesn't. Not in the real world. Calvin Reed didn't write women magic lore for the man who still believes in the Disney version of desire. He wrote it for the man who's been burned, played, ghosted, and drained. He wrote it for the man who is finally ready to stop pretending and see the game for what it actually is. Because there is a fundamental truth that modern men are not supposed to say out loud. Women don't fall in love with your goodness. They fall in love with your gravity, with your power, your presence, your command. Not your kindness, not your compromises, and certainly not your feelings laid bare for her to manage. The man she secretly fantasizes about is not the one who carefully places her on a pedestal. It's the one who stands so firmly on his own ground that he doesn't even seem to notice if she's applauding. You were raised with the idea that you have to chase, to prove your worth to her. But the moment you start to chase, you instantly flip the polarity. You kill the tension. You are signaling with every step, "I believe I am beneath you, so I must run after you." Reed's rule is brutally simple. Never chase. Because the moment you do, you are no longer the prize. You're the puppy. And women don't sleep with puppies. They pet them, they praise them, and then they get bored and move on to the wolf. The wolf doesn't ask for affection. He commands it, simply by existing in his own undeniable truth. That is the fundamental shift you have to make. Women are not attracted to men who beg for their attention. They are magnetically drawn to men who build worlds. You want her to need you? Then stop needing her. Build a life so compelling, so magnetic, that she actively wants to be in its orbit. Not because you bought her flowers, but because you showed her silence, purpose, direction, and a hint of unpredictability. You're still trying to win her over with effort, but women don't fall for effort. They fall for energy. The energy of the man who doesn't flinch, the man who can walk away without a second thought. That is the man she cannot forget. This is the lure. Reed exposes the trap that most men walk right into, believing that love is an even, logical exchange. It is not. It's a power dynamic, a psychological dance of who needs the other less, who controls the rhythm of intimacy, who is willing to withhold first. And here's the harshest truth of all. Women understand this instinctively. They don't need a book to teach it to them. They were raised on this principle. From a young age, they are taught not to give too much away, not to appear too eager, to make a man work for it, to let him invest more than she does. Why? Because the one who invests more becomes emotionally indebted. This isn't evil. It's evolution. It's a survival strategy. And yet here you are, texting first, texting back too quickly, opening up way too soon, laying your entire soul bare to a woman who is subconsciously scanning your every word for weakness. She's not looking for your truth. She's looking for leverage, not to destroy you, but to decide, can I shape this man? Can I guide him? Can I own his attention? And if the answer is yes, you are no longer a mystery to be solved. You're a mirror reflecting her own desires back at her. And women don't crave mirrors. They crave mountains.
Women magic lore teaches that being emotionally open too soon is not vulnerability, it's volunteering for psychological disarmament. You think you're building closeness, but you're just handing her your instruction manual. Every secret, every insecurity, every unmet need becomes a detailed roadmap she never even asked for. And once she has it, the chase is over. Not because she is cruel, but because your mystery died in your desperation. You need to understand this. Women are biologically wired to respond to uncertainty with desire. Not chaos, but masculine unpredictability. The calm man who reveals little, who leads with his presence, not with long paragraphs of text, that is the man who gets under her skin. That's the man she daydreams about. Not the one who asks, "What did I do wrong?" but the one who makes her ask herself, "Why can't I stop thinking about him?" You believe that connection is built on confession, that the more you tell her, the more she will trust you. But women don't trust words. They trust dominance, direction, and detachment. Reed makes it crystal clear. Women follow a man's energy, not his explanations. And when your energy is screaming, "Please, please choose me," she doesn't feel admiration. She feels a deep instinctual repulsion. Not because she's shallow, but because biology punishes neediness. Neediness smells like a survival deficit. It signals weakness. It says, "I need you to validate my existence. I need you to complete me. I need you to fix the parts of myself that I refuse to fix." And that isn't love. It's dependence dressed up as romance. Women know the difference. They may not articulate it, but they feel it in their bones. A man who worships her becomes less of a man in her eyes because he is handing over the very thing she craves most in him, his emotional authority. And when you give her that, you become hers, but not in the way you dreamed. You become hers to manage, to tolerate, to shape. You give her power, but you lose her respect. And here's the brutal irony. When she holds all that power, she doesn't feel safe. She feels burdened. Because no woman on earth truly wants to be the man in the relationship. She might act like it. She might even pretend she enjoys the control, but over time, she will grow to resent you for it. She will test you. She will provoke you. Not because she wants to destroy you, but because she is silently begging you to show her some spine, to fight back, to stand up, to not fold. Calvin Reed says it with surgical precision. The moment a woman knows she can control you emotionally, you have already lost her sexually. Because desire doesn't live in the land of comfort. It lives on the edge, in the space between two opposing poles. That's polarity. Masculine frame, unshakable direction. The man who doesn't just react to her moods, but anchors her through them. This is the secret they will never teach you in school. You think love is about achieving emotional equality, but attraction isn't. Attraction is primal, and the primal world doesn't care about fairness. It cares about instinct. Women aren't consciously strategizing this. They are feeling it, but their feelings follow an ancient pattern. She tests you to feel your strength. She withdraws to feel your pull. She pushes against your boundaries not because she wants to destroy them, but because she needs to know they are real. She needs to know that they will hold under pressure, that you will hold under pressure. You think you're being punished. You're not. You're being measured. Women don't fall for perfect men. They fall for immovable ones. The man who is so grounded in his own reality, so unbothered by her beauty, so unmoved by her emotional storms that she finally feels something incredibly rare: masculine security. Not the fake, chest-pounding alpha energy you see online, but the quiet, deep-rooted confidence that says, "I am enough with or without you. I want you, but I do not need you. And that single line is what separates the men who win from the men who chase. The man who wants but doesn't need is the man who chooses from a place of abundance, and women can feel that from a mile away. Calvin Reid hammers this point home. Your abundance is your ultimate leverage. When a woman senses that your world is already full, with a mission, with purpose, with other options, her mind stops focusing on what you say. It becomes obsessed with what you don't say, with the mystery she can't quite unravel, with the life she can't fully control. She'll start asking herself questions. Where does he go when he's not with me? Who's he seeing? Why isn't he obsessed with me like all the others? And in that space you create, you become the lure, the emotional gravity she can't escape. Not because you're playing games, but because you stopped making her the prize and became the prize yourself. Most men do the exact opposite. They meet a beautiful woman and they immediately surrender. They rearrange their lives, they cancel their plans, they bend their boundaries until they break. And then they have the audacity to cry when she loses interest. But what did you expect? You handed over the keys to your entire kingdom before she even proved she was worthy of a tour. Women do not respect access that comes without effort. They respect gates, standards, and challenges. Reid doesn't tell you to be rude, he tells you to be rare. Be rare in your silence. Be rare in your availability. Be rare in your need for her emotional handholding. Because when you become the man who doesn't need to speak to be heard, you become unforgettable. Women have seen attention. They've seen a flood of compliments. What they haven't seen, what they secretly crave, is a man who sees through them, not just at them. That's the man who rattles their frame. That's the man who redefines their taste. That's the man who doesn't just follow the rules of attraction, he is the rule. This is the part they won't tell you in therapy, in school, or on your sanitized social media feed, because it shatters the comfortable illusion you've been trained to protect. You're not failing with women because you're too emotional or not nice enough. You're failing because you willingly handed over your edge. Calvin Reid calls it the erosion of masculine polarity. You have been taught to seek harmony in your relationships, when what actually creates attraction is friction, not chaos, contrast. She is emotion, you are logic. She is fluid, you are fixed. She is the wave, you are the rock. And the moment you try to mirror her softness, to become a wave alongside her, you disappear into her frame. By default, she is forced to become the masculine energy in the dynamic. And no woman wants to sleep with what feels like her emotional twin. She doesn't want to hold you. She wants to feel held by you. And that feeling doesn't come from you crying on her shoulder. It comes from you knowing who the hell you are, with or without her. Reid rips the bandage off when he says, women don't want your soul. They want your center. They want to feel your axis, unshaken, especially when they are the ones trying to shake it. And make no mistake, she will try, not because she hates you, but because her deepest instincts need to verify you, to see if your confidence is real, if your words have roots, if your masculinity can withstand her chaos without folding.
Every complaint, every period of silence, every emotional swing, it is a test. And you, thinking you're being punished, respond with appeasement. But appeasement is the death of desire. She doesn't want a yes man. She wants a hell no man. A man who can stand up and say, "This is my boundary. This is the line." Not with violence, but with presence. With a power that doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. Women remember those men for the rest of their lives. Not because they were perfect, but because they were clear. This is the part most men refuse to accept. She doesn't actually want to lead. She will pretend she does, because modern culture has told her that's what she should want. But the moment you actually let her take the lead, she will lose attraction for you. She doesn't want to be the one driving the relationship. She wants to feel your direction, even when she's fighting against it. Because deep down, feminine energy doesn't want control. It wants to surrender. But it cannot and will not surrender to a man who has no structure, who has no standards, who bends the moment she pouts.
Reed puts it in surgical terms. If you give her the steering wheel, don't be shocked when she drives away. Not because she wanted to leave, but because you gave her no compelling reason to stay. So what's the solution? What do you actually do with this truth that feels more like a gut punch than a piece of helpful guidance? You stop. You stop chasing approval. You stop leading with your wounds. You stop begging for acceptance through affection. You stop seeking in women what you were never taught how to find in yourself. And you start becoming the kind of man who doesn't need her or any woman to make him feel worthy. You build, you sharpen, you expand. You create a gravitational pull so strong, so deeply rooted in your mission and your movement that women don't just want to be around you, they want to belong to the world you have built. Not because you demanded it, but precisely because you didn't. You showed them, through your actions, that your validation comes from results, not relationships. From your vision, not their validation. From clarity, not compliments. This is the uncomfortable truth that Reed shoves directly in your face. Most of your romantic pain isn't actually from her leaving. It's from the devastating realization that you had nothing outside of her. Your entire identity was built around being needed, around being wanted. When she walked away, your sense of self walked away with her. That is not her fault. That is yours. Because you made her the sun in your universe, and you forgot to become the sky. But here is the beauty hidden within the brutality. Now you know. Now you can see the game. And now you have a choice. You can choose to stop performing, to stop apologizing for your masculine nature, to stop giving your power away to women in exchange for scraps of affection that only pacify you long enough to keep you tame. And here is the final truth. The one most men never get to, because they're too busy blaming women, too bitter, too broken to see it. Women are not the problem. Your illusion of them is. Because the moment you stop needing her to complete you, you finally become complete yourself. Not in some soft, spiritual, fluffy way, but in a fire-forged reality. When you reclaim your center, when you learn to detach with presence, when you lead without needing to explain yourself, when you learn to say no without guilt and yes without fear, you become dangerous. Not reckless, not cruel, but undeniably, unshakably free. So here is your call to action, brother. Not to hate women and not to manipulate them, but to stop being manipulated by your own fantasies, to stop bleeding your worth into their hands and then wondering why you feel so empty. Read Women Magic Lore. Not like it's a pickup manual, but like it's a war map, a blueprint to achieving psychological sovereignty. And then you must live it. Walk like a man who doesn't chase. Speak like a man who doesn't fear silence. Love like a man who doesn't beg. That is when you stop being forgettable. That is when the game finally ends. Because the man who doesn't need to be chosen is the man she can never forget. And that, brother, is how you win. If this video opened your eyes or stirred something deep within you, consider supporting the channel by checking the link in the description. Your support means everything. And don't forget to like, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. It helps this message reach the men who truly need it. Cheers.